Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Viశేషాశూన్యవాది పాశ్చాత్య దేశతారిణి జయ శ్రీ కృష్ణ చైతన్య ప్రభు నిత్యానంద వేదగంగాధర శ్రీవాసది గౌర హరే కృష్ణ 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 హరే 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 రామ 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 హరే राधा वृंदावन चंद्र की जय साई गौरंग की जय राधे की जय. Okay, so we will continue our discussions on chapter 5.
Yes.
So before we continue from verse number 20, we have to start.
Yes.
Let's have a short recap of what we have understood so far. Chapter 5 is titled Karma Yoga, Action in Krishna Consciousness. The chapter 3 also was called as Karma Yoga, but that chapter described about the prescribed duties one has to discharge. There was a description of how to, what to do. And in this chapter, practical action. That's why it's called Action in Krishna Consciousness. So this chapter began with a question from Arjuna with regard to what is better or what is beneficial for him, whether to take up sannyasa, renouncing all the work, or work with devotion, because there are many points which Krishna has mentioned in the previous 4 chapters. So he was not in a position to decide what to do, whether I have to give up everything and pursue the path of what is known as Jnana Marga, renunciation, or Sankhya Marga, or you take up the path of Karma Yoga, right? That was the question. So Krishna said, both are okay. Either you renounce everything and take up the path of renunciation, or you follow the path of Karma Yoga. Ultimately, the end is the same. Krishna goes on analyzing about both the paths. One path is actually the path of analyzing about your existence, which Kapila Muni also explains in the Bhagavatam. What is this material world made up of? How it is all connected to Krishna? And finally, how we are entangled in this material world. As spirit soul, we are covered with so many material elements. So finally, we have to liberate ourselves from this entanglement. That is one process. That is detachment from matter. And other process is Karma Yoga, attachment to Krishna. Either detachment from matter or attachment to Krishna are the same. But Prabhupada very nicely explains, and it's what Krishna is trying to tell, that both are in one sense same. It has no difference in one sense. But for practical application, or rather practically what we should do, Krishna is recommending that if you perform Karma Yoga, action in Krishna consciousness, that is much better. That's what I prefer, Krishna says. And how that action in Krishna consciousness has to be performed, Krishna goes on to explain. Right? Work in devotion is an activity wherein the devotee, the practitioner, is understanding that everything in this world is having connection with Krishna. So whatever activity he does it as an offering to Krishna. Right? He does it on the principle of Yukta Vairagya. Yukta Vairagya means the aspect of understanding that nothing belongs to me, everything belongs to Krishna, and I have to offer everything to Krishna. Right? I don't have any attachment to the things otherwise. Whereas generally we function in a way as though we are attached to the things in the material world. This all belongs to me and I have to enjoy. That is the mentality. So Krishna is categorically making the point again and again that we have to sangam tektva. Means don't become attached. What is not become attached? Attached to the results of the activities what you are doing. So Krishna very nicely explains in verse number 10, an example, how we should function. Brahmanyadhaya karmani sangam tyaktva karotyah lipyate nasapapena padmapatram imambhasa. Should act in a way in Krishna consciousness without attachment to results, offering all results to Krishna, with the example that how the lotus leaf is untouched by water. The lotus leaf is in the midst of a big, in a pond of water, very much in the water, but the top of the lotus leaf is very clean. When one drop of water falls, it slides away. Like that, we should also remain in this material world, and it looks as though that we are in the middle of the material world, but we are supposed to have our consciousness in this way. So Prabhupada very nicely says, person in Krishna consciousness acts according to the knowledge that this body belongs to Krishna, body the property of Krishna, and should therefore be engaged in service of Krishna. This consciousness. Generally, what a person thinks, this body is mine, and this family is mine. I have to work for the family, for myself, and earn my enjoyment, my love. This is what everybody thinks in this way. But the Krishna conscious person should act in this way. What way? Just now we discussed, without attachment to results. This has been a very important concept. From the beginning to end of Gita, Krishna repeats this. Karma phala tyaga. Karmanyevadikaraste mahaphaleshu kadachana. See, beginning he said that. Even 18th chapter conclusion that only. Sarvadharman parityajya mamekam sharanam. So, whole Bhagavad Gita teaching is, don't become attached to results of your activities. Because it is not the activity what you are doing, the ingredients of the action are not yours. It's like this. You are called a carpenter to your house. You gave him all the wood, plywood, everything, and told him, you make a table and chair for me. Carpenter, after he made the table and chair, you paid him also the labor charges. After that, carpenter says, this table and chair belongs to me. So what you will say? Right? Ingredients I gave you, I called you, I give you labor also. How it belongs to you? This is what we are doing in the material world. We come to the material world, we use ingredients of Lord in this creation. We build a house and we say, my house, my property, I am the owner, right? I have done registration of this property. All these things we claim. I have property here, there, everywhere. It's my property, my house. So this is called, foolishness. But Krishna says, give up this. Nirmama nirahankaraha. Not mine, it is Krishna's. So even my body is not mine, which I am claiming it as mine. The body is like, Prabhupada always says, it's like a rented house for you. Tenant always thinks, I am staying in a rented house. It's not my house. Owner is somebody. So this conception already should have. This is what Krishna is telling us here. When you act in this consciousness that I am in a rented house, then you will always be, acting in a proper consciousness. Okay, so Krishna explains all these things, and he also explains the relation between the spirit soul, the way it is functioning. Actually, it can only desire. Right now, it has desired in a way that it is desiring contrary to its natural situation of serving Krishna. So it has got entangled now. And accordingly, Lord, by the agency of material nature, he has facilitated different bodies. Right? And this way, the spirit soul is covered by ignorance completely. Right? Ajnanena avrutam jnanam tena muhyanti jantavaha. We are completely bewildered in our actions, and we are doing so many activities as though thinking that I am this body. The beginning of all these things are, of all these various, what has happened to in our life is, we desired contrary to Krishna's service. Right? Actually, we are supposed to only serve Krishna. That we have forgotten and doing so many other things. That is the problem. So, Krishna very nicely explains further. So when the living entity is awakened in its proper knowledge, knowledge is there already in our heart, but has to be awakened. Just like now it is, sunset is over, it is dark. Morning again, sunrise will happen. So everything will be very clear for us. Likewise, when the awakening of our real understanding happens, that I am spirit soul, I am part and parcel of Krishna, and what happens? All the ajnana will become nasha. Verse number 16, Krishna says, Jnanena tu yad tad ajnanam yesham nashitam atmanaha tesham aditya vajnanam. This knowledge will arise like the sunrise happens, like that our knowledge will again be awakened. It will be prakasha. We'll see everything clearly, that I am spirit soul, I am part and parcel of Krishna, I am supposed to serve Krishna in this way. Everything will be clear to us. Then what happens? Krishna says, then your intelligence, your mind, your faith, and your refuge, which means your shelter. For you right now, you think my intelligence, my mind, everything is my energies. All Krishna given. But everything should be applied for Krishna. Then it has the proper utility. It has the right utility. So Krishna says, when you have this understanding, this perception, then you are free from all the misunderstandings, misapprehensions, wrong type of conceptions you are freed from. And this is the path of liberation for you. Krishna is very nicely telling, when you come to this level of understanding that everything belongs to Krishna, it has to be used for Krishna, then your mind, intelligence, your actions, everything is directed in that way. That is the right way of action. And in this conception of life, what will be your perception is what Krishna explains in verse number 18. Very famous verse. It's called the Samadarshana verse. Right? Krishna says, when you have this proper conception that I am part and parcel of Krishna, every living entity is part and parcel of Krishna, then what will be your vision? You'll have an equal vision. What is equal vision? Equal vision is called spiritual vision. Material vision is called Jada Darshana. A lot of differences. Rich, poor, good, bad, beautiful, ugly, intelligent, dull. These differences we keep seeing. Dualities we keep seeing. This duality, seeing dualities means it is material world. For Krishna, from Krishna's perception, pure devotee's perception, he sees only all are actually spirit souls. And to elephant, all are spirit souls. In fact, a pure devotee, Uttama Adhikari, sees every living entity as pure devotee. Because in it, that is what is the actual situation of every spirit soul. Whereas we see the difference. We see, he's a Brahmana, he's a Chandala, he's a cat, this is dog, he's this, that. We see bodily differences. What is bodily difference? Bodily difference is only because of the living entity's desire to enjoy the material world that way. So material nature has given a body, Swabhava. That's what Krishna explains in this chapter. So this is the vision, this is the perception which an advanced devotee will have. Very nice perception, right? And in this perception, if you continue, Krishna explains in verse number 19, if you continue in this perception of the Samadarshana, spiritual conception, then what happens? You are freed from birth and death. The material conception will entangle you in birth and death. Seeing the differences and seeing all this, that is better, this is good. I want to become a devata. I want to become a rich man. I want to do that. Just like, Prabhupada says, I want to fly like a bird. Okay, next life you become a bird. I want to eat fresh blood or drink fresh blood. Okay, next life you become a lion or a tiger. Like this, when you go on desiring and seeing the differences and the dualities in the material world, this is better, this is good, this is not good, like this is what is going on in everybody's mind, that is going to entangle in this cycle of birth and death. Whereas when you have the vision of spiritual understanding, you're a spirit soul, you have nothing to do with this material body. then what happens? You are freed from birth and death. And Krishna says, you are flawless like Brahman. Nirdosham hi samam brahma. Asmad brahmani te sthitaha. So that person is already situated in Brahman, which means when you are having this vision, spiritual vision, then you are no more in the material world, even though you have a body, but your only body is in the material world, but your conception and your perception is spiritual. A perfect example is Prabhupada. He was having a body like ours, but his consciousness was what? Spiritual consciousness. That's what Krishna wants us to do. Our way of seeing things, the material world, should be in connection with Krishna, and we should advance we should develop our consciousness, cultivate our consciousness in such a way that we don't have this material conception of life. We come to spiritual consciousness, Brahman consciousness. So having said this much, Krishna is now going to explain the various symptoms of a person in this spiritual consciousness. Brahman consciousness, Brahma Bhuta platform. Because somebody may say, I am very advanced, I am spiritually very advanced. Now we see, one sadhu with a big beard and big jata. Lot of dresses we see, and they look as though very advanced, externally advanced. But Krishna doesn't want external advancement. He wants consciousness advancement. You may be wearing a pant shirt, but what is your consciousness? That's what matters. So this has been the Bhagavad Gita's way of presenting things. Bhagavad Gita doesn't go with externals. Right? It goes with your internal consciousness. What is your consciousness? So Krishna has been explaining like this in various parts of Bhagavad Gita. Right? In second chapter, we saw Sthita Prajna. Right? Person who is steady in his consciousness. Arjuna asked questions and 4 questions, and Krishna explained. So like this, we see whole Bhagavad Gita, Krishna in various different parts of the teachings. He explains about the symptoms or the various signs of a person who is in spiritual consciousness. So verse 20 begins with that. Verse 20 to the next few verses, we'll see the various symptoms of a person. Because somebody may say or claim, I am spiritually advanced. But what is the symptom? It's like Prabhupada says, you say you're a rich man, but I see you're traveling in a public transport, and your dress looks like, you don't even have money. You're not even wearing a proper, shoes or chappal, right? So what is this? You're a rich man? Fine. So everybody has a symptom with regard to what he is, right? So that symptoms is what Bhagavad Gita explains. Not one is external is only just for some level, but what matters is internal consciousness. That's what is important. So verse 20, Krishna says, Na prahrishyet priyam prapya, nodvijet prapya cha priyam, sthira buddhir asam mudho brahmavid brahmani sthitah. Right? So Krishna says, this person who is situated in transcendence or is in spiritual platform, he does not become very overjoyed when there is something very pleasant. Oh, very good. Excellent. Too much jumping, there's in the cloud 9. Or something happened, very, sad thing happened, ooh, distressed. Right? He's goes to Mauna Vrata. Not like that. No dvijet prapya cha priyam. So, pleasant happens or unpleasant happens, he is having a proper steady consciousness. Very nice story Prabhupada says. In his times, during his stay in Kolkata, when he was a Grihastha. So there was a rich man, and who was having horses. The time horse means, or even now it is people having horses are rich. So he had one servant who was taking care of the horses. He's called a groom, right? So both master and servant, the groom, had purchased lottery tickets. Okay. So by chance, this groom, her servant lottery, no, it was announced in the newspapers. So big amount, some 10 lakhs. That time, I'm telling 1930s, 10 lakhs is a big amount, like crores. So when this lottery announcement came, this owner only told him, see, you have won a lottery of 10 lakh rupees. You have become a rich man, richer than me. So this servant couldn't take that. He got a shock, but a pleasure shock. And immediately on the spot, he died. So Prabhupada says, like this, no, some shocks happen in life. Pleasure shock and and distress shock. Right? People can't take it. They collapse. Right? So this is not proper, Prabhupada says. This is not the way we have to handle things. So this is when a person is like this, when there is too much pleasure, he gets carried away, and then he's in one more situation, and when it's something goes wrong in life, then he's too depressed. We see people, when something goes wrong, they become addicted to some intoxicants, or they commit suicide. Many things, such things happen. So this is going to extremes, which means they don't know what is life, how to handle their life. So this is not called spiritual consciousness. Right? Spiritual conscious symptom is a person who is not, he knows sukha, dukkha is part of life based on my karma. Some things are manifested, some situation comes as sukha. Again, I have to experience dukkha also. So he first of all knows that is all part of this body. I am not this body. It's very clear. Right? It is above the body, the conception. See, spiritual consciousness means first and foremost lesson is what? Dehi nosmin yatha dehe. The very beginning instruction Krishna gives, second chapter. You are not the body, you are spirit soul. This is very clear. There is no false identification with the body. Right? I am spirit soul. It's very clear. So on the spiritual platform, what happens to me on the bodily platform, hardly it matters for me. Success comes, failure comes, only for the body. Somebody honors, dishonors, all body. It doesn't hardly, cares. That's what Krishna explains, no? Matra sparshasta konteya sitoshna sukha dukkada. The sense perception of happiness, distress, heat, cold, all this is only for the skin, for this body. So we have to tolerate them. So this is the first symptom, that he is not too much elated when there is happiness, and not that he's too depressed, because material world is a situation, material world is a place where you go and experience many distresses. Every time distress comes, you're too depressed, right? Go into depression. That is not the way. You have to move forward in your life. You have to understand the purpose of life and move forward in our spiritual journey. That's the understanding. And in that way, he is Sthira Buddhihi, right? He knows very clearly that I am part and parcel of Krishna, right? He's, all his happiness, distress is just to this body. This way, his mind is steady, Sthira Buddhi, right? Or Prabhupada says, self-intelligent he is. Our intelligence right now is not self-intelligent. It is all TV borrowed intelligence or neighbor borrowed intelligence. They say something and you get so much of, oh, he told this, oh, TV mein ye aa gaya. So like this, we're influenced by so many factors. Media, newspaper, neighbors, relatives, mobile. So our consciousness is all getting agitated. We're not steady. So Krishna wants us to be steady. Sthira buddhir asammudho. Asammudha means unbewildered. Mudha means bewildered. Asammudha means not bewildered. Means he's maintaining that sanity in his consciousness. And why he is maintaining this consciousness, this type of a very calm consciousness, because he is Brahmavid. He is aware of the proper knowledge of what is he, what is this material world. He is aware of this. Based on that background, understanding is working. He is not an ignorant fool. That's the point. So he knows things as they are. So this is a symptom. It is a sign of a advanced person who is practicing, who is acting in Krishna consciousness. Just see. So too much happiness is not elated, or too much distress is depressed, and he's having a steady consciousness, steady intelligence, and he's not bewildered with so many things happening around him, and he's having proper understanding. He's Brahmani Sitaha. He's situated in transcendence. Next, verse number 21. So such a person also has a symptom of, see, these are all, symptom means what? With regard, we understood about the conception of the Brahman person, that he knows Krishna is my master and I am his servant. This conception is very clear for him. That's why his mind, intelligence, his faith, everything is fixed on Krishna's service. As Prabhupada says, one who is fully Krishna conscious is undoubtedly fixed in his understanding, right? So he's thoroughly understood what is what with regard to his situation. So on this conception, his perception is, we understood, equal vision, spiritual vision. He sees spirit, soul, not external body. And this conception, he goes on in his life. Krishna says he will be liberated from this body at the end of his life. Even now he is liberated. He is Jivan Mukta. And while living, what are his symptoms? Means what are his interactions with the different various people, situations, activities, is what we can see. So these all his symptoms we can very clearly see in the life of Prabhupada. Right? We can see there are many pastimes. I'll not get into details now. When appropriate, I'll tell. But right now, let us understand the principles here. When you carefully study Prabhupada's life, all these symptoms were manifested. In fact, pure devotees are the embodiment of the principles mentioned in the scriptures. Bhagavad Gita, Bhagavata, Mahabharata, all these scriptures are giving us principles. The pure devotee's life is a demonstration of that. Right? So next, Krishna says, what is the next symptom? Bahya sparsheshu asaktatma vindati atmani yat sukham sab brahma yoga yuktatma sukham akshayam ashnute. Krishna says, such a liberated person, asaktatma, right, is not attached, right? He is liberated. He is not attracted to sense pleasure. Material life means everybody is running after sense pleasure, right? Everybody is chasing after sense pleasure. That is material life. Whereas a person who is in the spiritual consciousness, as a liberated person, he is not behind any material pleasure. Prabhupada, when he went to America, he said, I'm not going for sightseeing. I am taking the order of my Guru Maharaj to preach the message of Krishna consciousness, Bhagavad Gita, Bhagavatam. Right? So, because he is not chasing after sense pleasure, material pleasure, he is enjoying the pleasure within. So, this verse is telling, Vindati Atmani Yat Sukham. People are running after sense gratification or sense pleasure, and when they indulge in sense gratification, they get an experience of some happiness. What is that experience of happiness and how it is going to entangle us? Krishna explains next verse. But the pure devotee knows that any sort of sense pleasure is only giving a feeling of pleasure, but actually there is no pleasure. It is only illusion. This is the very first statement which Bhagavatam explains. The Bhagavatam is a literature which is an explanation of Bhagavad Gita. Bhagavad Gita is a summary of complete Vedic literatures in a very, very concise way. Krishna explains himself personally. And Bhagavatam is a further explanation of all the principles mentioned in Bhagavad Gita. Right? The very first statement in Bhagavatam, which Vyasadeva makes, is that this material world, which appears to be real, Actually, it is only is made to appear as factual because Krishna wants we as living entities have forgotten Krishna, and Krishna has given imitation. Right? I have given this example earlier also. It's like a child is very much keen, anxious to work in the kitchen or imitate mother. He wants to use a knife. He wants to operate the stove with fire, everything. So mother knows, and if the child is given all these things, it is harmful for the child. So she gives a toy, a stove, toy, knife, everything toy, right? Play. So the child also is playing, keeping, oh, I'm cutting the vegetable, I'm cooking, everything, he'll think like that. So likewise, this material world is all an imitation which Krishna has given us because we want to imitate Krishna. That's the problem with us. We want to imitate, so Krishna has given, okay, take this toy and play. Okay, this life, you play like this. After this life is over, one more play you'll start. This life after life, we are playing different roles. Like in drama, we play once you're a king, once you're a servant, once you're something, once like this, we are going on life after life. So he knows the liberated person, the person of spiritual consciousness knows all these various things in the material world, the so-called sense pleasure, only illusory, right? So bahya sparshya sasakta atma vindati atmani yasukam sab brahmani yoga yukta atma, right? So he knows the happiness which is there in spiritual connection with Krishna is unending, it's eternal. Whereas any sort of a happiness in the material world is entangling, right? That's what Krishna is going to explain in the next verse. And this is the next verse that will connect it. Let's get to the next verse discussion, then we'll understand this is completely. Verse number 22, Krishna says, these are all symptoms which Krishna is explaining of a liberated person or a person who is in spiritual consciousness. And the best example is Prabhupada's life. Prabhupada himself as a personality. And all the Goswamis of Vrindavan, 6 Goswamis of Vrindavan, Haridas Thakur, they're all perfect examples of this descriptions of Bhagavad. Because sometimes you may wonder, oh, Krishna is explaining these things, but where do we see such symptoms? It should be somebody as a person, no, is only, sometimes people think Bhagavad Gita is only theory. Right? Simply, we should know something, good things, no, sort you're knowing. No. Bhagavad Gita is Jnana and Vijnana. Vijnana means it's supposed to be followed by each of us. Suppose we are supposed to come to this level. Right? That's what Krishna expects us to do this, because this action Krishna consciousness means you are supposed to act this way, come to this platform. So the beauty of Krishna consciousness or bhakti is that when you start following what Prabhupada has told us, you'll gradually come to this level. And you also, as an individual, we should endeavor to see that we are reaching this stage. We have to strive for that. It's like in the material world, people are striving for earning money, earning fame, earning name, right? Position. They are working very hard. So we should also work hard to come to these positions. These various symptoms, we have to acquire them. Qualities, we have to acquire them. Right? Material world, people are chasing after many positions, and wealth and name and so many things. So as a sadhaka, as a devotee, we are supposed to chase after the achievements which Krishna has told us as a benchmark. Okay, fine. So next verse is a very interesting verse, very important verse. Krishna says, Yahi samsparsha jabhoga dukh yoniya evate adi antavantah kaunteya nateshu ramate buddhaha. So this verse, Krishna is telling why these liberated souls or the personalities who are liberated in their consciousness, they are having spiritual consciousness. They are not interested in sense pleasure. They are asakta atma. Why? Because they know this sense gratification means it's only contact of the sense with the sense object. I'll give an example. For the tongue, the sense object is some eatable, say nice rasgulla. Sense object you touch on the tongue. Ah, so nice taste. Right? For the eyes, the sense object is form, beautiful form. Whenever you see something very beautiful, oh, very nice, very good. For the ear, the sense object is sound. Right? For the nose, sense object is fragrant smell. Oh, nice rose. Oh, very good. And for the skin, sense object is soft touch. So when the sense object, when the sense comes in touch with the sense object, the feeling of happiness, Krishna explained this in second chapter already, in verse number 55. He says that Prajahati yada kaman sarvan partha manogata. Any feeling of sense gratification or sense pleasure you feel is only a mental concoction. We have imagined like this object with my sense, it touches, oh, I'm going to experience happiness. Right? That's what we have concocted in our mind. For somebody eating meat, means when the meat is kept on tongue, very tasty. Same meat, you don't like to eat meat. Nasty. One man's food is another man's poison. Right? So, the person who is eating or accustomed to eat meat, he has concocted. Concoction means imagination, or you have cooked up some story in your mind. Right? This is what is going to give you pleasure. A person who is accustomed to smoke, for him, cigarette after cigarette, oh, very nice, sense pleasure. But you, who's not even, taken one cigarette in your life, for you it is, right? So this sense gratification means it is a concoction in your mind. So Krishna says, any sense gratification which you have concocted in your mind is actually activity of sense object and sense coming together, touching, samsparsha, contacting each other. Okay, so a sense object and sense touches each other or contacts each other, that you are perceiving it as sense gratification. Krishna says any sense gratification of your concoction is a source of misery, is a mother of problems. Right? Dukkha yonaya evate. There's a nice statement in Bhagavatam. Yatha bijam yatha tatha yoni. Whatever type of bija is given, that type of yoni comes out. Which means a seed, a dog will impregnate the seed in the she dog, then a puppy will come out. Yatha bija tatha yoni. So yoni means basically the type of the birth or the source from where the birth happens. So dukkha yonaya evate, source of all misery. And this sense gratification symptom is adi antavanta kaunteya. This has a beginning and an end. One rasgulla you ate, very nice. One more, very nice. Third one, not so tasty as first and second, little okay. Somehow I finish. And the host is telling, take one more. No, nothing. Ant. Adi, ant means beginning, end. This is the nature of any sense gratification. Oh, that film of Shah Rukh Khan, I saw once, very nice. Second time I saw, very nice. Third time, no, enough. I heard there was a fan of one, Shah Rukh Khan, some film, 1990s or 1995. He saw every day, 365 days. I don't know how he has seen. After that, he has gone mad. So, like this, people are there doing so many nonsense things. So, any material sense pleasure, what I want to tell you is, it has a beginning and an end. Krishna also says it is a source of misery. So, an intelligent person, Buddha means Buddha, intelligent person will not take any satisfaction in this or any pleasure in this. Nateshu ramate. Ramate means doesn't take any delight in that. So the intelligent person, where does he take delight? Verse number 21. He takes Vindati Atmani Yat Sukham, he takes delight within. Because he knows connecting with Supreme Lord Krishna and the association with Krishna, that is going to give him the pleasure which is not Adi Anta, doesn't have a beginning and it is everlasting. So Prabhupada is quoting from a nice statement from Padma Purana. What is this spiritual pleasure? Material pleasure, any activity, right now you may get a sense of happiness. But it is going to entangle you and so much of miseries from the beginning, also misery. To get that sense pleasure, you have to struggle, work hard. After you enjoy, that moment of enjoyment only is enjoyment for you. After that, again suffering. Prahlad Maharaj gives a classic example. Sex, beginning to have sex is problem. Only a sex pleasure, some enjoyment. After sex is full of problem. Children. Right? So like this, Yan Maisunadi Grihamegi Sukham hi Tucham Kanduyanena Karayuriva Dukha Dukham. This is Prahlad Maharaj statement. Yan Maithuna Sukha. Maithuna Sukha means sex pleasure. Yan Maisunadi Grihamedi Sukham hi Tucham. Little pleasure is there. For that, so much of problem you take. So this is the version of scriptures. So what is the spiritual pleasure? Ramante yogino anante satyanande chidatmani iti rama pade naso param brahmapi dhiyate. So Padma Purana states this pleasure in connection with Krishna and association with Krishna, any spiritual pleasure is what? It is ananta, it is unlimited, it is everlasting, right? And because it is coming out from the unlimited, supreme absolute truth, the nature of this pleasure is unlimited, is everlasting, it's ever increasing. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says, the pleasure in Sankirtana is Anandambudhi Vardhanam. It is ever increasing like the ocean. The ocean of happiness is ever increasing, whereas in our experience, the ocean has limitation, it doesn't expand. Whereas the happiness in spiritual activity is ever increasing. That one Krishna says, Susukham kartum avyayam. The happiness in the spiritual activity is always very blissful. Like this, Krishna goes on to explain very wonderful aspects with regard to sense pleasure. So, the symptom with regard to a liberated person or a spiritually advanced person with any sense gratification is that he takes it as abominable. Sense pleasure, he is away from sense pleasure. Because he knows sense pleasure means now you may experience some enjoyment, but in the future you have to suffer for that. It's a source of misery, what Krishna says. Very important verse this is. This should strike our understanding so much. Oh, any sense indulgence means you have to suffer for that. You have to pay for it. That's what it is. So that's why the liberated people, liberated personalities, they are only taking pleasure with Krishna. Means they want to give pleasure to Krishna, and Krishna is giving unlimited pleasure to them. That's how the spiritual pleasure is. Whereas in material pleasure, you have to work hard and you have to earn that pleasure. And that pleasure also is not easy. You have to only have it's a momentary, flickering pleasure. So it's called Adi Anta. It's a momentary pleasure, and it's not, it's not a permanent experience. It's so-called pleasure, it is going to entangle you. That's the point. So Krishna recommends very nicely the next verse, verse 23. So what you should do? This is a symptom of a advanced person. Shaknohi taiva yashodhum prakshrira vimokshanat kama krododbhavam vegam sayukta sasukhi naraha. Krishna says, so because the sense pleasure is something which is actually entangling, it is good to have control. One is able to tolerate the urges which are going to come up in our mind-body system every now and then. Right? These urges, Rupa Goswami explains, urges of the mind, urges of the different senses, urges of anger, urges of the tongue, as speech or taste, urges of the stomach, urges of the genitals. Watch is explains about 6 urges in his instruction, nectar of instruction, Upadeshamrita. Vacho vegam, manasah krodha vegam, jihva vegam, udaropastha vegam. So we have so many urges. Urges means it's a push from within our body, just like we want to talk something. So Rupa Goswami says this talking capacity we have, but if we talk nonsense means not connected to Krishna, is only going to invite death for you. Prabhupada gives an example of how the frog in the field, agricultural field, it is going on croaking, go, 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 go. Right? Some sound it is making. And that sound is very attractive for the snake. It will know where is this frog. It will come and eat the frog. So simply if you make sounds of some Bollywood songs, Maya snake will come and capture you. That's all. So instead of that, you use your tongue to vibrate Hare Krishna. Do Sankirtan. Okay, like that, many wonderful descriptions are there in Bhagavad. So urge to speak and urge of your mind. Mind is telling this, do that, do this, see this, eat this. So mind should be used whatever Krishna wants. It's like this, Rupa Goswami goes on to explain. So Lord Krishna is telling in this verse, very nice verse, before giving up this body, if one is able to tolerate the urges of the material senses and check the force of desire and anger, kama krodho bhavam vegam, he is a yogi and is happy in this world. Right? So when kama is not satisfied, material desire is not satisfied, it will generate krodha, anger. So when krodha is not satisfied, krodha leads to next symptoms, as Krishna explains in 2nd chapter. Prabhupada very nicely explains here. Krodha will make your mind, eyes and chest become agitated. The whole body becomes agitated with your even subtle body. Mind, chest and eyes become agitated. And therefore, one must practice to control them before one gives up this material body. Right? So, one who is able to practice, that's why the control, self-control or the sense control is so important. Krishna is stressing every now and then. Why? Because this is what is the beginning of spiritual life. So, this sense control is a duty of every practitioner. As Prabhupada says, the duty of every transcendentalist to strenuously try to control desire and anger. Right? Because if you don't do that, what happens? You will be engulfed. That's what Krishna explained in 3rd chapter. They are like fire. They will engulf you. They will consume you. Kama yesha krodha yesha rajoguna samudbhava mahashano mahapapma vidyenam vairinam. Kama, krodha are like great enemies. They will consume you, Arjuna, Krishna said. And they will, destroy you, destroy real knowledge. Just see. So these are all various wonderful instructions in Bhagavad Gita, which we should keep remembering ourselves, and move forward in our spiritual journey. Today's last verse, verse 24. So Krishna says, when you have leading a life of spiritual progress like this, controlling your senses and engaging your mind, body, intelligence in service of Krishna, then what happens? Yo anta sukha antararama, verse 24. Tathantar jyotirevayaha sa yogi brahma nirvanam Brahma bhutodi gacchati. So, a spiritualist or a practicing Krishna conscious devotee, he knows happiness is not outside. Happiness is inside. Right? Krishna is within us as super soul, and associating with him by chanting his names, by trying to understand Bhagavad Gita, following all the principles of Bhagavad Gita. Yo anta sukha, antararama, right? Anta sukha means happiness is within. So the practitioner, spiritual practitioner, he is actually enjoying delight, bliss within, and because he's engaged in spiritual activities, his illumination or his knowledge, prakasha, is increasing. Whereas outside people, they're indulging in sense gratification and they're becoming more and more, they're getting into darkness. Whereas you are chanting Hare Krishna, trying to understand Bhagavad Gita, you are getting enlightenment. Right? The Antajyoti means the knowledge which is within you is awakened. Right? So Krishna says, this is the perfect mystic. Sayogi Brahma Nirvanam. Such a person is actually liberated in the Supreme. Right? Which means he is having a body right now like any other person, but he is Jivan Mukta. That's what Krishna is trying to tell us here. So such a situation or such a state of consciousness can be attained by a person who has understood the value of what is spiritual practice. So such wonderful instructions are there in Bhagavad Gita, you see. Right? So today we have discussed on the various symptoms of a spiritually advanced person, or a spiritually elevated person, a liberated person, or a spiritually conscious person. Brahma Bhuta level. What happens? Krishna is repeatedly using this word Brahma Bhuto Adhigacchati. Brahma Bhuta means spiritual platforms. Right now, our situation is Jiva Bhuta. Jiva Bhuta means fully busy in eating, sleeping, mating, defending, and various sense gratificatory other activities. Mind absorbed in all these activities called Jiva Bhuta. Brahma Bhuta means, yes, bodily requirements just needed to keep your body fit to practice spiritual understanding and spiritual activities. That is the important thing. So Brahma Bhuta, that's what Krishna wants. Brahma Bhuta Prasanna Atma, 18th chapter, Krishna says. Brahma Bhuta Prasanna Atma, na sochati na kankshati. When you come to Brahma Bhuta platform, spiritual platform, then you're always joyful. Material platform means Jiva Bhuta Dukkhatma. Right? Brahma Bhuta Prasanna Jiva Bhuta is Dukkhatma, means always Dukkha. Misery, 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 problem. That problem, this problem. Until the end of our life, problems continue. It will go on beyond your life also. It will carry forward. Balance will go on. So that's what is going on in our so many lives. So Brahma Bhuta Prasanna Atma na sochati na kankshati. He has no hankering, no lamentation. Whereas Jiva Bhuta means full of lamentation, full of hankering. Hankering for what he doesn't have. Right? I don't have this, I don't have that. So many things until end of a life. I didn't become president of India. So much of I didn't. My election I lost. Again I stand, but he's only over. His life is over. Right? Akanksha. Then lamentation. I did my best, but I failed. I did that, I failed. Simply, he's lamenting. Sochati means he's lamenting for what he has lost, what he has failed in his life. I did that, or I wanted to do this activity, but I failed. I did that, I failed. My marriage got failed. My children failed me. I guess it goes on in his life, fail. That's what life is, failure. Sochati, whereas Brahma Bhuta is na sochati na. So like this, very nicely Krishna is going to explain and develop these concepts in a wonderful way. So I'll conclude here. If anybody has anything to discuss, comment, or ask, we can take it up. And next session we'll complete this chapter. Very interesting chapter.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. In the 24th verse, what is the difference between Brahma Nirvanam and Brahma Bhuta? Please.
Okay. Brahma Bhuta, Brahma Nirvana. Okay. See, Nirvana, Prabhupada has been explaining to us. Nirvana, according to Buddhist concept, is you are coming out of this material existence and going into the existence of Shunya. Right? Shunyavada, that is called Nirvana. But Prabhupada explains from very beginning, from second chapter onwards for us. If you see the second chapter, last verse, Krishna uses this word Nirvana there also. Brahma Nirvana, Richati. Esha Brahmi Jita Partha, Nainam Prapya Vimuhyati, Sitvasya Mantakalepi, Brahma Nirvanam Richati. Nirvana for us doesn't mean we cease this material existence and we enter, or rather we are nowhere. Shunya, that is called Shunyavada. No, Nirvana in our case means we are out of this material existence and we enter into spiritual existence. Spiritual kingdom, Prabhupada explains. Brahma Nirvana is spiritual kingdom. Okay, that is the first explanation. And with regard to Brahma Bhuta situation, as Prabhupada explains here, self-realized situation, as I was telling you, the verse I quoted from Bhagavad Gita, Brahma Bhuta Prasannatma is a situation in your life right now. Brahma Nirvana is the attainment you are going to get if you are Brahma Bhuta. Brahma Nirvana is the attainment when you are practicing Brahma Bhuta in this life. Hope it is clear.
Yes. Now we understand. Yes,
Brahma Bhuta is the type of lifestyle you are going to lead. Right? Self-realized life I have to live. A life of enlightenment, life of spiritual understanding I have to live. That is called Brahma Bhuta life. And Brahma Nirvana, Nirvana basically means the liberation. Liberation has different connotations based on the various contexts. Okay, the Mayavadis say Nirvana means finally merging with Supreme, Absolute, rather the Nirakara Tattva. For Nirvana for Buddhists means nothing, Shunya. Right? That is, whereas in the Vaishnava understanding, Nirvana means you attain spiritual kingdom. You become one of the associates of Krishna based on your, inclination. You get different type of liberations. 4 types of liberations are explained. Like that. That is what is called Brahma Nirvana. Okay. Fine.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Any other question? Okay. So I request all of you to read this chapter carefully. A very important chapter to give us a lot of understanding with regard to many aspects which Krishna is going to further elaborate based on this chapter in other chapters. So it's a very important chapter. So next chapter onwards, 6th chapter onwards is very simple. In Bhagavad Gita, there are 2 tough chapters. 1 and 13th chapter.
Yes.
Okay. Every other chapter is very simple. One sense, from philosophical point of view. So this chapter, unless you get into the depth of things properly, it will only go over the head. Above the head. Okay.
Your explanation is very, very helpful, Prabhuji. With clarity, you are explaining. Thank you.
Or I have what I'm explaining. So much more depth in this. We are not able to express it. Fine. So we'll close now. We'll meet again next week with the balance verses and try to complete this chapter. Okay. Thank you, everybody.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.